championship game lockdown appearance here on Birds 365. John McMullen and Jody McDonald, joined by our buddy, Paul Domowitch, who looks like he's ready to talk some championship game football. PD, how'd you enjoy your weekend?
Enjoyed it a lot, Jody. Enjoyed it a lot.
There might be some championship game credentials on that wall, I think, Domo. You've been to a few. Yeah.
You won't be honored at the link, though.
Fair enough. Dom, I know that you've seen it, and most of our streamers have seen it. The comparison between Saturday's game and the one that was played to the day 5 years previously that you were at and had a pass to get into and viewed with your own two eyes. Same exact score, the Giants beat down and the Minnesota Vikings loss in the NFC Championship game. I'll go this far. This week's game was even more domination because the Eagles did it from the jump. At least in that game, the Vikings gave you a fight in the first quarter. The Giants didn't even do that. This was a one-punch knockout on Saturday night, Domo.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the game would be a little bit closer, but the Eagles did everything they needed to do. They jumped out early, like you said. They were much better in the red zone than they were in that last game of the season against the Giants. They were incredible on third down. I mean, it was never a game. I mean, it was just complete domination.
Yeah, it's been such a dominating season for the Eagles. I mean, with Jalen Hurts in the lineup, I mean, they lost one game and they argued they beat themselves. So they'll spin it as they're undefeated with the starting quarterback. It almost doesn't feel like an NFC Championship game for me, Damo, because once it became, halfway through the season, you almost expected them to be here. And now that they're here, it seems like that is where we're supposed to be. So do you have that normal juice, or do you just expect this team's that good? They should be here. What else were we expecting?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and same thing with San Francisco. I mean, you expected these two teams to be playing each other. They clearly were the two best teams in the NFC. With Cowboys always were a wild card. They were inconsistent all season. I mean, so I always thought it would at the end their road to the Super Bowl they'd have to beat San Francisco.
One of the things that I have to admit after the fact that maybe I didn't give the Eagles enough credit for coming into the game, and I didn't win them by double digits, just not the massive blowout that we witnessed, because of Lane Johnson playing through the injury that he had. Even though I said here on Birds 365, I had more confidence. I was about, we throw these percentages around. I was about 98% confident on Lane Johnson. I was only about 90% confident on Jalen Hurts. The Eagles' offensive line just pushed the Giants. The Eagles' offensive line pushed the Giants' defensive line around. Miles Sanders had massive holes to run through. When they went to Boston and Scott down by the goal line, that was just money people handed to you with the Boston Scott touchdown. Gainwell late. How dominant was the Eagle offensive line on Saturday night, Dama?
It was impressive, and especially when you consider the injuries. I mean, I don't know how Lane Johnson did what he did. I mean, you saw him early in the game limping. I thought Driscoll was going to be in there by the beginning of the second quarter. Instead, Lane Johnson plays the whole game, does not give up a sack, a pressure. It's part of that run offense. Just
27 times, Damo. 27 times at pass pro. Okay, Bob Thibodeau. Oh, Aziz Ojala. Nothing with a torn groin muscle. Not one pressure. Not one quarterback hit. It's pretty amazing. Nick has that hyperbole, and he says best right tackle in the world. He's the best right tackle in the world, and it's not particularly close.
I give the coaching staff credit. I've criticized them at times this season for not playing more 12 and 13 personnel when they had Driscoll out there. Well, yesterday they played two or three tight ends 52% of the time, I think, by my count. So, I mean, they were giving Lane help. They were, and I think we'll see the same thing against San Francisco. against that defense. I mean, you can't play. I don't think you can afford to play much 11 against them. They'll pick their spots, but I mean, they need those tight ends to help block, to help the run game. So,
but let me ask you this, Dama. Was that more about helping Lane, or was that more about Shane Steichen knowing he could just run the football down their throat? Because they run they run for 268, and it was not only Jack Stoll, it was also Zach Pascal. So to me, he played more than Quez Watkins. So to me, they came in with that game plan, like we're gonna rip this team on the ground. Do you think it was a little bit, because they don't help their tackle? Let's be honest. When Jordan was hurt, Jordan Mailata, early in the season, he was banged up with the shoulder. They didn't help him. They don't help their tackles typically when they need to throw the ball, but I don't think they needed to throw the ball.
I think it was a little of both, but they also knew that when they did have to throw the ball, they were going to be facing, Martindale's blitzes. So it helps to have, some extra blockers. It'll be interesting to see what they do this week, how they attack that defense, because that's one. As Dallas found out, that's one really good defense.
Yeah, this is a step up, as they say. No question about it. Our old buddy D'Amico Ryans. He was such a smart guy as a player. Chip Kelly would rave about him. And he's turned into such a good coordinator. But, man, it helps to have talent. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. They are loaded, the San Francisco 49ers. Little bit of a surprise. Eagles, I guess Vegas opened 1.5 or 2, depending where you looked. And that usually you get 3 points as a home team. So that says, Vegas thinks San Francisco is a little bit better. You surprised by that?
No, I thought it would be, no more than 3, certainly. The fact that they maybe feel, the 49ers coming in here as a favorite, at least as a betting favorite, that doesn't surprise me a lot. But, the one factor here, which is going to be interesting, is Brock Purdy, a rookie coming into a venue like this. I thought there was an interesting number I saw somewhere. His win-loss record in college, home and away, was just night and day.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. Maybe it means
10
nothing.
13 on the road, I think 21-4 at home. But
he's played 2 road games so far, only as a starter in the NFL. So, playing in the link with this crowd is, it's like nothing you're going to face. So, the key to this game is going to be the key to every game for them. They've got to grab the lead early. You grab the lead and make San Francisco play from behind, they're a different team. They have to, Kyle Shanahan has to, think about doing things he ordinarily wouldn't. So, including have Purdy throw more. So, I think that's going to be a key Sunday.
And the Eagle defense that Brock Purdy will be facing, man, were they dominant. I know that offense grabs attention and headlines and everything else, but the first 5 possessions for the Giants, out on downs, which John and I debated at the top of the show, did Brian Daboll lose the game when he decided to kick off rather than take the ball first? It could have been that early. Or it certainly was locked out after he decided to go for it on 4th down and they got sacked again. Oh, yeah, give the Eagles a short field. That's a good idea, trailing 7-0. Over on downs, second play in the drive, a pick by Bradbury. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. How do you get any better than that? First 5 possessions, down on downs, an interception, and 3 and outs on a punt. The Eagle defense, and shame on me, at least, I'll take my own blame here. They're not getting enough credit. Jonathan Gannon, as good as Shane Steichen's game plan was, Jonathan Gannon's was just as good on defense.
It was. Let's remember, though, this week they're facing a team with a lot more weapons than the Giants had. Very true. But it was great. It's all good. Defensively for the Eagles, it's coming down to that pass rush. If they can do what they did this past week against the Niners offensive line and put pressure on Purdy, it's a different game. But, they're playing against a team with a great, probably the best play action offense in the league. How do they deal with that? They can't allow the 49ers to control the ball. And this is a team that I think has the second best time of possession average in the league, but that you don't want to get into a game like you did in that second Washington game where you can't get the ball back, where every one of your possessions is like, we got to do something because we can't give it back to them. We'll never see it again. So, that's going to be they can't let them control the ball. They've got to put a stop. They can't. They're not going to put a stop to that running game, but they've certainly got to slow it down. They can't allow Christian McCaffrey and Debo and those guys to go crazy.
Yeah, I think, Damo, this is going to be a big tackling game. And the Eagles, one of the things they didn't do very well early in the season, probably the only thing besides special teams, was tackle. Starting really week 1 in Detroit, they had a really bad game. They were really bad in Arizona, really bad in Houston. And then I think Houston was the last game. And then it was like second half of the season. They were pretty damn good tackling. All of a sudden, the light went off. But, man, when Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Debo Samuel and on and on and on, and Brandon Ayuk, these guys are yak machines. If you don't make that first tackle, you got a problem. I think because and Kyle wants the football out of Brock Purdy's hands early, and I think that only increases on the road at Lincoln Financial Field. So it's going to be a lot of quick stuff. And if the Eagles tackle well, I think they win the game. But if they don't, it could get ugly quickly.
Yeah, and San Francisco's strength in their passing game is between the hashes.
Oh yeah,
that middle of the field, which the Eagles have often been vulnerable in that area this season. Getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson back certainly is helpful, but I mean they've got to take away that part of the field from San Francisco and make Purdy throw, towards the sideline, make him make longer throws.
Yeah.
Whether they can do that, I don't know. I mean, Kittle's as good as they faced all season.
Yeah. By the way, I remember when I first alerted Eagles fans to how good George Kittle was. I remember it because Zach Ertz was having the big year, and I whispered, George Kittle's the best tight end in football. I never got so much hate in my life. Never got an apology, Dom. Never got an apology. Still the best tight end in football.
This guy is so cool under pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, during the game or late in the game or after the game, he spotted the sky camera.
Yeah. He's having fun out there.
And he's smiling like who's thinking about that? In a key playoff game. But that's George.
He is a great player. He really is.
I know that he's the best balanced tight end, but I'll take Kelsey's receiving to surpass the total package. He is so much the best receiver that I would put him slightly ahead of George Kittle, even though Kittle's a blocker, which Kelsey never has been. But he's just what Kelsey does offensively is unbelievable. Let me ask you about this. You mentioned that Purdy was only okay. Yes, he wasn't near as good as he has been. But, man, he's got him hanging. You talk about throwing between the hashes. That was all the plays he made yesterday. It seemed to me like Dallas was trying to defend it. He was threading the needle in there, taking chances, throwing into tight windows, and getting the football to McCaffrey, to Kittle. He made some nervy plays yesterday for a guy who's 8 games into his NFL career.
I would argue too nervy. I would argue too. This is what I've been saying, Joe.
Too nervy. He's 8-0.
Yeah, I know.
How is that too nervy?
Well, I find this ironic, Damo. This is going to go on all week because I don't believe in Brock Purdy, but I picked the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl in the preseason. So I'm like weighing, all right, what am I going to do here? Am I going to stick to my guns? Jody picked the Eagles to go to the preseason, but he loves Brock Purdy. And I'm like, I just don't believe in him. And I certainly don't believe in him at Lincoln Financial Field in January. These people are going to be brutal to him. I don't think he's going to know what hit him. And he throws those footballs over the middle of the field, And I'm like holding my breath. I don't even care who wins the game. And I'm like, oh my God, is he doing it again? And he keeps succeeding and succeeding. You got to give him credit. But boy, I don't trust him in this spot. Am I crazy to not trust Brock Purdy?
You would think he's got to come down to earth at some point. But he needs help. He needs help from the defense to make him come down to earth. You know, I mean, that run game he's got to, you know, he's never been in a situation since they made him the starter where he's had to carry this team. I mean, that's just not the way they're built. And so you've got to make him have to carry more of the load. You have to put him in more third and long situations where, you know, and then you let that pass rush do the rest. I mean, 2 more third down sacks yesterday out of their 5 sacks. I mean, that pass rush is just incredible, and it's going to have to be this week too. I mean, if they can put pressure on him and force mistakes, and they can put him in a lot of third and longs, I think you can bring Brock Purdy down to earth.
All right, so let me see if I get this straight. Brock Purdy likes to throw over the middle. Kyle Shanahan continues calling plays for him to throw it across the middle. The 49ers have guys who can go across the middle and catch the football. Well, the one way you defend that is get your corners up and press those guys coming off the line of scrimmage. How often does Jonathan Gannon do that?
Not as much as critics would like, certainly.
Yeah.
Oh,
by the way, Tom,
that kind of adds up the question marks for me coming into the game.
What did you think?
Tackles, you know.
What did you think of Nick after the game, going off on Angelo Cataldi and the flagship radio station that Jody also works for, about criticizing JG? And he just went. I was surprised. Is that his tact in this game, to go the disrespect route? Disrespect. So everybody's disrespected. You know, I saw our buddy Hunter Brody talking about the line. What disrespect? 1.5, 2 point for the Eagles. Everybody's about disrespect, it seems, in the modern NFL. Micah Parsons disrespected Jalen Hurts. This, that. Is that what the Eagles are doing with this Gannon stuff? Sirianni going, and I know JG hates it, but that was weird that he brought it up sort of out of nowhere.
I think just like 2017, they're looking for things to,
that's what I thought.
Use the chip on the shoulder as you know, to get them motivated. I mean, you don't have to get motivated for an NFC Championship game, but every little bit helps. And I think he's trying to fire up that defense to have him go to war for Gannon on Sunday.
Let's face it, Damo. Most Eagles fans, not all, but most, would rather have DeMeco Ryans as the defensive coordinator, because he was a popular player on a crappy defense for Philadelphia than the defensive coordinator that gave him the second best defense. Now, granted, San Francisco's number 1, but I think the Eagles were 16 yards behind him. It's pretty close.
I mean, 70 sacks, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
You know, the 3rd most in history, or at least since they started counting sacks, and people want him fired. You know, if you're going to pick something to rip, I don't think right now it should be Jonathan Gannon.
I'll tell you where the disrespect's going to come in. A guy who's going to play the disrespect card. That would be Kyle Shanahan, because he's going to point out that after Brock Purdy scored 35 points in his first game, and 33 points in the first game, and 35 in the second, 21, 37, 37, 38. Guys like John McMullen and Paul Domowitch going, well, it's got to stop at some point. He's got to come back down to earth at some point. This miracle run can't run. 2 Philadelphia media guys continuing to say that at some point the Cinderella's got to turn back into a pumpkin. That's some disrespect right there.
By the way, I agree with you. He will use that. That's what I mean. The whole league's about disrespect. Why don't you just say, hey, I'm the best team. I'm going to go kick somebody's ass. I kind of like that approach, which the Eagles took against the Giants. And they were they're significantly better than the Giants. This is more of an even matchup. But you're right, Jody.
John, who was on the record from the Eagles who said, we're going to kick the Giants' ass before the game?
Well, they don't don't say that kind of stuff publicly, but behind the scenes, they were pretty stinking confident they were going to kick the Giants' ass, and they should have been. Yeah, but they're too smart to say that stuff on screen. But everybody plays this disrespect game, and he's doing it with Jonathan Gannon. And Jody, by the way, is doing it with the 49ers, and they'll do it with Kyle Shanahan. But I guarantee you, Jody, it's early in the week, but Jody's going to pick the Eagles. And you know why I know that? Because he picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl before the season. So with all this Brock Purdy love, Jody's going to pick the Eagles. I haven't decided. I'm wavering. I'm like, do I stick with my preseason pick? What do I do here? I don't know what I'm going to do, but I am concerned about Brock Purdy at Lincoln Financial Field. I don't think that's crazy. I'm concerned about veteran quarterbacks coming into Lincoln Financial Field in January. It's a very, very difficult place to play.
Yeah. I mean, the quarterback that I'm a little bit worried about is, Jalen staying healthy if you're an Eagles fan. He made it through Saturday's game, but he's not 100%. I mean, which made his performance on Saturday even more incredible. I mean, running with the ball, I think he only ended up taking 2 or 3 hits, maybe 2, and neither one of them was serious, but he exposed himself. He wasn't afraid to, and threw the ball well. Like I said, he's nowhere close to 100%.
The only player who might not be ready to go for the Eagles come Sunday is Avonte Maddox, who at least I thought this week was going to get back out onto the practice field, just judging by how the Eagles handled him from the time he got hurt, not putting him on IR, giving himself roster flexibility. They chose not to, which meant to me they were hoping to get him back this week. Didn't happen, didn't even practice. You want to take a poke and a hope as to whether Maddox is going to be good to go by this upcoming Sunday against the 49ers for the championship game, Damo?
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue where he stands physically right now. Thankfully for them, I mean, Gardner Johnson has been able to play up and back, kind of double, moonlight as the corner, as the slot guy. So I mean, they haven't missed Maddox as much as you would think. But getting him back certainly would help. It would be a big boost against this team.
Yeah. It is important because we talked about how much San Francisco throws the football over the middle of the field. So to have, Avonte Maddox and C.J. Gardner-Johnson to be able to sort of help T.J. Edwards and Kaiser White, that to me could really shift things in the Eagles' favor. So, and it is uncertainty. But just from the timing standpoint, the Eagles didn't place him on IR, so that means they thought he would come back at some point, and we only got 2 more potential games. So it is going to be interesting to see Wednesday and Thursday if Avonte can get back on the field. I think that would be a very big boost for the Eagles against this team, particularly. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, though, as you mentioned, Damo, let's talk about him. He's playing sort of that hybrid role. When the Eagles have a nickel corner on the field, he's playing that. Then he'll go back to safety. Reed Blankenship, they're showing tremendous trust in that kid. That's a heck of a story. We talk about Brock Purdy. Obviously, quarterbacks are going to be always high profile. Undrafted kid from Middle Tennessee State. He's out there for every snap. How big of a surprise has Reed Blankenship been to you?
Well, not on my radar, John. I don't know if he was on yours.
That's a safety factory, Middle Tennessee State. Kevin Byard went there. And then that's who Blankenship replaced at Middle Tennessee State. It's a safety factory down there, Damo.
Yeah. I love his attitude out there, his tackling ability, his instincts. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, next year. They're obviously going to find a more prominent role for him in their defense, even when everybody's healthy, depending on who comes back. But yeah, and Gardner Johnson's just been getting him back. They probably aren't in the NFC Championship game if he hasn't been playing the last few weeks.
And by the way, on Blankenship, he got picked on. That first Giant possession, 2 of the passes they completed were against him. And then afterwards, he shut it down and didn't get beat once the entire game and made some huge tackles. So he got challenged early and then answered the challenge thereafter for the rest of the game, much like all his teammates who just beat the Giants down. I brought this up with John earlier. Let me run it by you, Damo. Any chance for overconfidence? Now, I'm talking about behind the scenes, and nobody's going to go on the record. John just rightfully said, oh, they're not stupid enough to put bulletin board material out there for everybody else, but certainly they're going to feel confident about their chances. Any chance for overconfidence coming into this game?
I'd be really shocked, Jody. All they have to do is look at the film, and they know what they're facing.
Yeah, this team's good. I think to be honest, they were overconfident against the Giants, but I think they could be. You can't be overconfident against this team. Playmakers, but there's some areas where you can attack San Francisco. I don't think their defensive line is as good as it typically has been in the past few years when they've been on this little run. It's Nick Bosa. Armstead is back. Bosa is going to be Defensive Player of the Year. That's going to be interesting to me, Damo, if he can break Lane Johnson's sort of sack list streak. That to me is going to be an interesting matchup. The linebackers, they have the best linebackers in the NFL. Tandem, Warner and Greenlaw. Even the third kid is really good. But the corners, I think, the Eagles go in every week and pretty much, if you ask Nick, what do you think you have the advantage? They almost always say wide receiver because they're so good. AJ's so good. I think they do have a big advantage at wide receiver, even against San Francisco. You see it that way?
I mean, it's a place to exploit. San Francisco's stronger probably at safety than they are at corner. I don't know how they'll use those safeties with respect to AJ and helping out on AJ and Devonta. It was interesting this past week. I mean, I don't know what went on with AJ. He was not happy at the end. Everybody on TV saw the discussion he was having with Nick, I think it was. I don't know if it was over the fact that he felt he wasn't targeted enough. I don't know if it was the fact that he thought he was not on the field enough because of the fact that they went with more 12 and 13 personnel. I'm not sure, but he's got to be a bigger factor this week. Certainly, I think he can have a good game against this, but it all comes down to him, getting some time. You said that line is not as good as it's been in the past, and you're probably right. But there's Lane's got to stay, be able to be functional enough to stay in Bosa's face and not let him be a factor. So if he does that and Jalen has time, they certainly can do some damage in the passing game.
And that's what I think the Eagles have to do to win this game, because San Francisco's run defense is superior. They shut down the Cowboys yesterday. No, Pollard got hurt, which compromised Dallas's running game for sure.
Yeah.
But they were the number 2 team against the rush all year long. They can be had against the pass. This could very well be a Jalen Hurts game. John just said Sirianni always has confidence in his wide receivers. They can win that matchup. Well, that's the matchup they're going to have to win, because that's where I think San Francisco can be beat.
Yeah. Although, you're right about them against the rush, but they haven't faced too many quarterbacks who bring the element to the offense.
The Eagles are different, man. The Eagles are different when they have that +1 and that threat, and it's the threat more than anything else. I was looking at the numbers, Damo, and you probably know this, but they were like 150-ish running with Jalen healthy, almost 5 yards a carry. Then you had the Gardner Minshew games in Week 18, and they were down under 100 and under 4 yards a carry. That's the difference of Jalen Hurts. And all of a sudden he's back. The zone read mechanics are back in the offense, and you're 268. There is a big, big difference when he is on the field just the threats of him running the football and pulling it on the backside. I want to talk about these coaches because Kyle Shanahan, and Jody knows, I say it often enough. To me, that's the best. You can argue with Andy, obviously, but to me, that's the best play schemer in the NFL. He makes mistakes in game management, though, because he's bogged down in play calling. He makes a lot of mistakes. I think the best thing Nick did was to sort of take a step back and become more of a CEO coach. When it comes to game management, you think the Eagles have the advantage over the 49ers?
Yeah, I mean, I always think, when you've got a head coach that's a CEO as opposed to calling offense or defense, you're in a better situation in the overall scheme of things than no matter how smart the guy is, and Kyle Shanahan's as smart as anybody. So, yeah, I do. X's and O's wise, Kyle's going to try it. I mean, what's different about their offense is in a passing league, they use the run to set up the pass. So they have to succeed with the run or it all falls apart. So we're going to find out early whether, and that's not an easy run game to stop. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is going to present challenges on Sundays. Most of their guys are. So, and the Eagles have had games where they have not done a very good job against the run. So, when I look at what Kyle's going to try and do on Sunday and what they need to stop, it starts with that, stopping their run game or at least slowing it down. And like I said earlier, putting a rookie quarterback in 3rd and long situations.
All right, so I'm going to put you to the test here, Damo, on how the Eagle offense is going to play on Sunday. For the year, regular season, the Eagles average 240 per game on the ground, through the air, 140 per game on the ground. If I tell you they're going over on one of those two, either run it for more than 140 or pass it for more than 240, which one do you think is more likely to happen?
Well, like Jody was saying earlier about their defense against the run, I think this could be a 300-yard type passing game for Jalen.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're going to throw the ball. The Eagles fans are not going to be happy with that, but they're going to come out throwing the football against San Francisco. But we shall see. At PDamo, 33team.com, JAKIBsports.com, WBCB.com. Merrill Station does a tremendous job. I'll leave you with this, Damo. Who's going to win the football game? Who's going to go to the Super Bowl? Who's going to represent the NFC? The Eagles have had a nice little run here. If you think about Super Bowl 52, it was Matt Ryan and Case Keenum. This time it's Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy. You can't ask for a better situation from a quarterback standpoint. They're just going to waltz into the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a 53-yard walk-off field goal by Jake Elliott.
Whoa. I like it. Jake Elliott. Yeah.
Talk about bringing down the house at the link. What will that sound like if that's the way that it plays?
Might implode. Woo. Yeah.
Damo, great stuff. Always a pleasure, buddy. We plan on getting you back on next week because if the Eagles win, we got a 2-week lead up to the Super Bowl. You're going to be on at least one of those shows with us. Thanks for doing it to you this morning.
You bet, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Paul Domowitch, 33rd team, JAKIBsports.com. Only been covering Eagles for decades. Knows both the history and
he just said 53 walk-off, right? Yeah. Walk-off field goal to win it. Could you imagine that place if they walk off?
That's why I said Lincoln Financial Field. I hope the support in the building is there because it's going to get loud. It's going to get crazy if that's what it is. And I'm glad that John McMullen made my pick for me. In case you're just tuning in, John has already informed the loyal listeners of Birds 365
because I know
what my pick is going to be. He doesn't know who's going to win the game yet, but he's already decided for me who's going to win the game. I will tell him, sorry, John, you're wrong.
I hope
I have not decided yet who's going to win because I think it's that close. I think it's a stone cold toss up between these two teams. Not only are they the two best teams in the NFC, they're this close. The 49ers have only won 12 straight games, And I wasn't kidding when I said earlier, I thought John McMullen and Paul Domowitch were disrespecting Brock Purdy a little bit. The kid's undefeated. He hasn't lost a football game yet. But true. The Eagles are going to have to deal with him on Sunday.
I'll say this. Yes, I stand by my Jody Mack prediction. We'll see if I'm right. The question is, will I stand by my 49ers prediction? I don't know. You're going to have to tune in the rest of the.
You're going to have to do a 180 on Brock Purdy. If you've got stones enough to pick the 49ers.
Yeah, that's why I'm wavering.
You're going to have to come around on Brock Purdy.
That's why I'm wavering. Here's where I'm torn. My whole philosophy with picking the 49ers was that I thought Trey Lance was going to be a little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Not great, but a little bit better. And I thought that would be enough to put San Francisco over the hump and back in the Super Bowl. That was my thought. Didn't turn out that way, obviously, but Brock Purdy has been better than Jimmy Garoppolo. So I have this, raging debates in my inner core. I don't believe in this kid. And part of it is, to be honest, pedigree. But I have seen enough of the 49ers play to see, you shouldn't throw that. Oh, you shouldn't throw that. Oh, you shouldn't throw that. And it's all working. So it's a difficult decision, because I'm going to make Eagles fans mad for the first of many times this week, no doubt. The best team in football from a talent perspective is the San Francisco 49ers. The best team in football. But the Eagles have the significantly better quarterback. And they're also stinking talented. They might be number 2 to San Francisco. So it's a very close game, as you mentioned, Joe.
And a quick response to one of our streamers, our guy, Dominique, the Jaquan Jarrett. Tart fan. He said, and Jody Mack was scared of the Giants. I absolutely was not. The hell are you talking about? The only reservation I had coming into the Giant game this week was Jalen Hurts' shoulder, Lane Johnson's ad. That's it. That's the only thing that I had concern of. And yeah, I didn't know if Lane was going to be able to play 3 plays and then be back on the sidelines. If the offensive play calling was going to be continue and protect Jalen Hurts' shoulder mode. That was the only thing I feared. I feared the Eagles, not the Giants. And this week, I will tell you right now, because it's going to sound like I feared the 49ers. I don't, from an Eagle perspective. I don't fear the 49ers. Here's what I do. I respect the 49ers. I think when you win 12 games in a row, you've earned
They haven't lost in 3 months. They're
undefeated for November, December, and January, okay? To me, that merits respect. People like to pick and choose the words they use. That's what we do every day here on Bird 365. We pick and choose our own words. Let me get mine on record. I respect the San Francisco 49ers. I don't fear the 49ers. The Eagles shouldn't fear anybody. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Cincinnati Bengals, they shouldn't fear anybody. They played as good football as anybody all year long. But I have to give respect to a team that's won 12 games in a row. If you're not, then shame on you. I've asked this question twice now about overconfidence. The Eagles, I think, do need to be a little wary of that, because they had such an easy time with the Giants. They beat out the Giants as easily as they did.
Yeah. I don't think that game helped them. Yeah, I don't think that game helped them. I think it's irrelevant. I think it was such a mismatch. Like people, I think I give the Eagles all the credit in the world. You don't play around it again. Like in week 18, they played around in that type of situation, and they were way too close at the end of the game, box score wise, with the New York Giants. They just came in the playoffs and just dismantled them. So I give them credit, but I don't think you learned that much, because they were so much significantly better than the Giants. I don't think you've learned that much about the team. From that standpoint, I've already thrown that game out of my mind. I'm like, it's so irrelevant to me, because they're so much better than the Giants. And I go back to Pat Leonard, our buddy, and I was talking to Pat in the press box, and he mentioned again last week when he was on the show, the game that mattered, December 11th, and he was the one who told us, they were shook. The Giants were shook in the locker room because they were like, oh my God, this team is so much better than we are. And that always stuck with me. And the Eagles sort of had that same approach behind the scenes. Like we're much better than this team. And they proved it. And that's why I kind of put it aside already.
And hopefully the Eagles do just that, keep it in its proper perspective. They dominated a team they were supposed to dominate. They took care of business. They did what they were supposed to. They were healthy this side of Vontae Maddox. Their two key guys, Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts, were perfectly fine, and they put the beat down on the Giants they were supposed to. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. Chris Franklin's going to join us in about 15 minutes. When we come back, I'm going to take a stone-cold shot at a media outlet. Embarrassing media outlet. It just cannot even be explained to football fans. We will get a timeout in here, then I'll come back and just lambaste a media outlet. Oh my God, you should borderline think about turning in your media pass for the stupidness that they're keeping up these days. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, coming right back here on Birds 365.